Bitcoin has made multiple all-time highs over the past month, but that hasn't stopped Michael Saylor from buying. And in today's video, you and I are going to be reading through an article discussing his latest purchase and why he simply does not care how much he has to pay for Bitcoin because of what he thinks it's going to be worth in the future. Now, with that being said, let's dive in. MicroStrategy continues Bitcoin buying spree with another $1.5 billion purchase. Now, if you're not aware, MicroStrategy is Michael Saylor's company, just to give you that note. In a move that has become almost routine, MicroStrategy has once again made headlines by acquiring a massive amount of Bitcoin. MicroStrategy purchased 15,400 Bitcoin for approximately $1.5 billion in cash, which public companies use to announce unexpected material events or corporate changes, filed with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission on December 2nd. The business intelligence company paid an average price of $95,976 per coin, including fees and expenses. This purchase brings MicroStrategy's Bitcoin return to 38.7% for the quarter and 63.3% year to date. MicroStrategy has acquired 15,400 Bitcoin for $1.5 billion at $95,976 per coin and has achieved Bitcoin yield of 38.7 QTD and 63.3% year to date. That was a tweet from Michael Saylor. Now let's stop here. Why is he buying? Well, simply put, he doesn't care about the price. He doesn't care about the price because A, he is price insensitive. What does that mean? Well, price insensitive means that he does not care about the price. Those two terms go together. They equal each other. If you don't care about price and you just want to buy, you're price insensitive. If you care about the price, as in you're looking for a deal or you're looking to get in to a position in short or go long at a certain price, you're price sensitive. He has an advantage because he's raising investor capital to buy. And that investor capital has a much longer time horizon than a retail investor. And so he's able to buy large swaths of Bitcoin at ridiculously high prices because he's not selling, because he's not going to be forced to sell, so long as he takes out his debt properly. Now, that's a whole different subject. Not going to cover it in this video because it's a little bit more in depth. But as long as he takes out his debt properly and he has a good risk to reward ratio, he doesn't care about the price. Let's continue. This latest purchase was funded through the sale of Class A common stock, exactly, raising investor funds, under a previously established sales agreement. Between November 25th and December 1st, MicroStrategy sold approximately 3.7 million shares, generating net proceeds of around $1.48 billion after deducting sales commissions. This sale is part of a broader plan under the sales agreement with various financial institutions, which allows for the issuance and sale of up to $21 billion worth of shares. As of December 1st, MicroStrategy's total Bitcoin holdings stand at 402,100 Bitcoin, acquired at an aggregate purchase price of roughly $23.4 billion, which on a per coin basis is $58,263 per Bitcoin. So he is definitely in the green, still big time in the green, including associated fees and costs. The sales agreement, initiated on October 30th with TD Securities and other sales agents, has facilitated the sale of shares, leaving the company with approximately $11.3 billion worth of shares available for future transactions. And you have to read up on this. You have to do your own studying on how these companies and firms work. But to my knowledge, essentially whenever you're looking to sell common stock, you have to disclose that with the SEC. You have to put together a sales agreement, and you have to say, this is how much we want to sell over X time period. And then you lay that out. The SEC looks through your paperwork. They say, cool, great, awesome. There's a bunch of fine details in there, and then you get approved for it. So he has $11.3 billion worth of shares available for future transactions. Now, of course, he could always come up with another sales agreement, but this is of the current sales agreement. MicroStrategy continues to actively accumulate Bitcoin. To fund these purchases, the company is strategically issuing shares to expand its cryptocurrency holdings. This strategy aligns with CEO Michael Saylor's vocal support for Bitcoin. Yes, he is basically John the Baptist for Bitcoin. If Bitcoin is Jesus, he is John the Baptist. Or if Bitcoin is God, he is Jesus. However you want to equate it, that's what it is. If Pac was like Jesus and Nas wrote the Bible, then he's Nas. This is the exact same thing. MicroStrategy calls Bitcoin as the highest performing uncorrelated asset that a corporation can hold on its balance sheet. Uncorrelated, we'll see. In the future, perhaps. Right now, still fairly correlated with risk assets, especially since it's a 7-day market. It's very liquid. If you need to sell because you're being forced out of position, if you're being forced to sell on a margin call, you can always sell Bitcoin on a Saturday or Sunday. So it's still correlated pretty heavily. In the future, I don't think it will be, but what do I know, of course. In the presentation, MicroStrategy predicts that 2025 will be the year of the crypto renaissance. This prediction is based on anticipated developments such as Wall Street's embrace of Bitcoin, ETFs, widespread adoption of fair value accounting for digital assets, that's a big one, and a pro-Bitcoin stance from the next U.S. president and cabinet. Oh, and another one that he doesn't list here is liquidity. Liquidity is rising. Liquidity started rising about 8 to 12 weeks ago. It usually has an 8 to 12 week lag. Coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. I think there's something to do with it. I think right now you can make the case that so much of the price appreciation you're seeing in the markets is because of liquidity. Yes, many of the technical factors say that we're overvalued. The Warren Buffett indicator, if you're familiar, says that we are overvalued. PE ratios in stocks say that we're overvalued. But I think we're in a new era, or at least for a while, where liquidity will drive price movement so much more than any fundamental factor, that so long as liquidity is rising, prices will go up with it. Maybe that's wrong, not financial advice, just me spitballing, but something to consider. Further supporting this quote-unquote renaissance as MicroStrategy's expectations of growing congressional support for crypto, the establishment of a Bitcoin strategic reserve, and a clear regulatory framework for digital assets in the U.S. MicroStrategy's stock is closely tied to Bitcoin's performance. No kidding, because they're basically a Bitcoin holding company, but with amplified swings. While Bitcoin is up 150% this year, MSTR has surged up 513%. This heightened volatility was clear in November, when MSTR soared 58%, exceeding Bitcoin's 37% gain. So, if you're looking for essentially a 3x leveraged position on Bitcoin, you should invest in MSTR. I don't invest in MSTR. I've never considered it. Maybe I should, just for a little bit of added juice to the portfolio. But do your own research, because if it goes up 513% while Bitcoin's up 150, if Bitcoin goes down 50, MSTR could go down 80. So, buyer beware, right? Let's continue. More companies embrace Bitcoin as inflation hedge. MicroStrategy is not alone in its pursuit of Bitcoin. A growing number of companies are adding the cryptocurrency to their balance sheets as a potential hedge against inflation. Artificial intelligence from Genius Group also joined the trend on November 18th and outlining its intention to hold up to 90% of its reserves in Bitcoin in the future. Additionally, so we got another tech solution provider holding Bitcoin. They purchased 297 coins for $29 million at $75,000 per coin. There's a Japanese investment firm that plans to raise over $62 million through a stock acquisition to buy more Bitcoin. They have about 1,000 of them. So what do we see here? Well, we see that Michael Saylor is not alone. He is the most vocal. He's the most notable, but he's not the only one looking at Bitcoin as an inflation hedge and as a reserve asset. Right now, we're in a tricky period of time where if you look toward the future, you're probably right. Buying Bitcoin probably will be an inflation hedge, so long as things continue on their current trajectory. Of course, we live in a dynamic world, so things could always get shaken up like crazy. The feminine chaos could run in and destroy everything. So you have to plan for that. That's why you don't invest more than you're willing to lose. You need to do those calculations very clearly, and you need to be very honest with yourself how much you're willing to sacrifice for this. Because if you go in too heavily, even if you're right over the long haul, even if you're right in the macro, you can still get crushed and wiped out in the micro if you go in too heavily. For MicroStrategy, it's not as big of a deal, though it could come back to bite them. For you as a retail investor, it's a big deal because you're working with limited funds. You're not raising millions of dollars in cash. Though, of course, go out and try if you'd like, but it's a different game for them. However, the biggest thing to note here, I believe, is that this trend is in place. Foreign countries are adopting Bitcoin for strategic reserves. The U.S. is. I don't know how much it's going to be worth. I don't know what its use case is, but it looks like it's here to stay. And at this point, I'm very comfortable with saying everybody should own a 5 to 10% allocation depending on your risk tolerance. Maybe higher if you're really young and you really want to go for it. I'd say 5% at least is a good portfolio size for Bitcoin. That's what I would tell people. But of course, I'm not a financial advisor, so do what you like. Do your own research. If you've gained value out of this, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Let me know if you're still hodling, if you're still buying, and where you see this price going in the future. That being said, I'll see you in the next one. Much love, peace. This is the New Da Vinci. Have a blessed day or evening, whatever time it is for you.